Hey, and welcome to the podcast. Thanks for joining us today. My name's Will. I'm here with my best buddy, Zach. We're going to talk about preparedness-related topics and other fun things. How you doing, Zach?
Doing good this morning. Yeah. Just got back from the gym a little while ago. Got cleaned. Feel fresh.
Always a good feeling.
The topic that we're about to get into, this could go crazy, right?
I think we need to keep this at a summary level to start with, and maybe break it down in future episodes here, because you're right, we could go deep.
The first overarching point that we're going to make here is the necessity of having the right equipment, everything that you need. Starting from the basics. I like the idea of basing it on the things that you can carry with you on your person at any given time, and how that would expand out into something bigger, something more long-lasting, something that you would take with you on a trip, on an adventure, for a certain project overseas, whatever it is, right? I find myself sometimes walking outside and realizing, oh, I didn't wear enough, or this not this coat, but that coat, or this one was a shell jacket and it didn't have like the insulation on the inside, right? I'm a huge fan of layers, and I'm a fan of having something with me in the vehicle at all times. I don't know if I'd call mine a bug out vehicle, but it's a very prepared place. Like, my vehicle it's pretty ready to go for a lot.
Well, I mean, I do have my get-home kit in my car. And I don't know, maybe that's kind of what you're thinking about. I don't know. I know about some of the things you've got in your car. I don't know if it's all exclusively tied to that.
What you probably do is crack open my car as long as I remove the license plate or something like
Right.
that, and we could do a little video of this. But it's very an unassuming vehicle. It's not the kind that you'd expect to be your
You blend nicely, very incognito.
right. Yeah. And so I look at, just in the vehicle I have a all fleece, a synthetic polyester, but like the fleece like keeps you like somewhat uncomfortably warm, like pullover in there with a hood. It's got like the tactical things on it, just because that's where I got it. Got it cheap somewhere, but it keeps you so crazy warm. Then I have a very thin rolled up rain jacket. I rolled it up into the hood, probably about this size, right?
Right.
Just something to keep the rain off. And I imagine if I coupled those together, I'm gonna be totally covered, like really, really well. Especially with whatever else I happen to be wearing. If I'm gonna walk outside and it's gonna be, cold out, I'm gonna have something long sleeve on. I like these kind. They're like polyester, pretty warm on the inside, pretty smooth on the outside, very fitted. So I can put stuff on top of this. It comes with a hood that keeps me good. But I also have a puffer jacket for that extra insulation as well. But yeah, we could go over what we have in our vehicles, what we want to have in a bug out bag, that sort of thing. But for clothing, I guess in this season, I'm just concerned about having enough to be warm. At the same time, I did take out, I just wore this. And again, this isn't like ultra sweater wear here. It's pretty thin, sporty. And I wore that under the shell jacket that I have. And I was a little cold the other morning, but I wanted to test it, see how my body would react after walking. And so I just began walking. I'm talking in 15 minutes. I was sweating at that point, right? And so I think, gauging what you need based on the weather and your activity is probably the most important way you can prepare for clothing, right? But give me your thoughts on clothing. What?
No, I'm with you. I get up in the morning. It's kind of a blessing and a curse. Like, I love my dog, but she's kind of a lemon. And it's like you never get a day off, because no matter when I want to wake up, she wants to go outside, probably earlier than that. So the good news is, though, I get up every morning and I get to go outside and walk her. And so I check the weather pretty regularly. And I'm usually starting on my day by dressing in mind that I'm going to have to go outside with my dog and be out there for 10, 15 minutes, let her have a little walk, do her business, and come back in. So that helps me get started just on a daily basis. As far as what I carry with me, if I'm running out and I know I'm going to be out and around, I usually try to dress for it. Kind of like we said, closed-toed shoes. I'll usually try and bring an appropriate jacket. But in my car, I also keep I've got a windbreaker with a hood, And then I've got, I had this idea come and kind of gel over a couple of different things that I listened to in podcasts and some of my own thoughts. I have a black hoodie in my car. And my thought was the combination of those two gives me layers. But I was also thinking with the hoodie, if I were downtown in the city here and riots started breaking out, now I can kind of wear the quote unquote uniform of the rioters.
Yeah.
Lets me blend in a little more, and I can,
your identity. Yeah.
Right. I'm not going to stand out like a sore thumb, and that may let me kind of navigate through a crowd, dip down an alley, and get to a safe place. So that was kind of some of my thought process too. So yeah, I know that there are times I have to go in and be in an office environment and kind of look the part. And so in my get home bag, I do have a pair of cargo pants and some hiking shoes, some good socks, and then, a layer or two to go with the jacket. And so I've got all this in my get home bag along with some other things in my kit there. And that's something that if we're going to break your car open, we can crack open my get home bag too, and maybe see if that's one episode or two episodes or what that looks like.
Absolutely. Yeah. Maybe we'll get my 7-year-old to hold the camera for us too.
Nice.
So what I don't have anymore is something in the vehicle as far as footwear goes.
Okay.
Right. Footwear, I've just, and it's because I've started to adopt and always wear my best footwear. And footwear is a huge deal, guys. Like when you're talking about and you don't know what the terrain is, you want something that's going to last. It's going to be comfortable enough. It's going to fit your foot the right way, so you're not, walking on a strange, in a strange shape, right? I do have some boots that probably could use just some really good insoles, right? They're really good quality boots,
right?
But there's something off about them, right? My favorite that I have gotten a hold of, the one that I wear all the time now, it's actually really stylish. And it's called Keen, Keen.
Yes, those are good boots.
Shoes.
It's shoes in general, but yeah.
Shoes and boots, yeah. And let me pull up the style that I have. These are
while you're pulling that up, I'm just going to say, you and I are kind of lucky. We got jobs that allow some flexibility, but think about our wives having to go to a business meeting. What if they're wearing heels or some sort of little ballet flat or something like that, and now they've got to walk home for whatever reason? You want an extra pair of shoes, whether that's sneakers or tennis shoes or something like that, just to have options.
Absolutely. And I know it's really tempting when it comes to having kids. If your kids are up and walking, they're at that age, but it's still hard to get them out the door and tie their shoes or whatever it is. Guys, having something more than Crocs available is probably really smart.
Velcro is not that hard.
No, it's not great. I actually can't find the kind of shoes that I had ordered the one time from Keen, but they're really slick colors.
I like yours because they're the black boots, right? That's what I'm thinking of.
So those are not my.
That's what I'm thinking of there.
Ones. The black boots are slick, but there's the ones that need the insoles here. But let me look up real quick my Keen shoes so I can show you a sweet picture of this. Gee whiz. This makes it look like I spent this much. I did not spend this much, guys, but check this out. These are straight up Zach colors right here. You got the lime green, blue, and black, and they have the carbon toe, which, dude, they're rad. And this it's interesting. You don't really appreciate what makes these really cool based on these photos, but this part on the toe on one of the features of the Keen brand, and I hate to go on about this too much because I'm not sponsored by them at all whatsoever, but one of the cool features of their design, you always can tell it's Keen because of the way this front rubber comes up on only part of the toe. So you can't tell. It's showing the inside here, but if they would get a direct front view of it, it goes up on only part of the toe, and so you have this kind of lopsided look, which actually looks really, really cool. It's hard to describe, but it's pretty slick looking.
No, those were not the ones I was thinking of.
Yeah, but these ones have the carbon toe, unbreakable, incredibly comfortable for being something that looks like a work shoe. Right. And these ones this color scheme obviously does not look quite like that. These go with basically anything that I wear, just with my style. But yeah, 120, that's a pretty steep price there, guys.
They're a little markup on Amazon once in a while.
The thing is though, if you're going to invest, this reminds me of in my industry, there's certain equipment that you get And if you get the right kind, you just have it for the rest of your life.
Right.
Right. It's so with shoes and boots, man, if you invest in the right kind, like somewhere around the 200 to 300 mark, apparently those are the kind that are going to last forever. And so that's something that and again, like, you don't know it until you talk to somebody who walks in them all the time, or if you experience them. Like, shoes, boots do wear down. If you're someone that purchases Nike, you're going to get a new pair every year, right? Like, you're not going to get something that's going to last all that long, even though it's going to be pretty comfortable to walk on those marshmallows.
I'm kind of in that same vein. If you're going to spend money on gear, and equipment, I would say don't skimp on a backpack, especially if it's going to be your 72-hour pack. And I've been on both sides of that. When I was younger and didn't have a lot of money, I saw the get this special for $29, and I was thrilled. So I got a 7-liter pack for $29, and you kind of get what you pay for. I've had some packs like that have been okay. I've had other ones that have split the seams on the shoulder straps, on the second day on a hike or something like that. And so now I'm trying to safety pin this thing together or stitch it together with whatever I have. Duct tape only goes so far sometimes. But so yeah, like, spend money. If you're going to spend money when you're getting started, a pack is worth the investment. I mean, even if you just go to REI, they'll fit you out. They'll get one that's designed, for you, that'll fit your frame and your size. It's okay to spend a little money on that. I'm giving you permission to do that.
Yeah. And, it's something that, like, once you get serious enough about it, you can start investing. But most people have an extra pair of footwear, there's someone, this prepper that I follow online, he recommended, like, just use last year's shoes in your get home bag. Like, just throw those in there. They're obviously going to be worn down a little bit, but they're going to be flat. So if you're, your daughter who's off to college or whatever, you get her a get home bag, like, just tell her to keep your last year's shoes in there. They don't wear very much, because even though they don't look as good, they'll still last. They'll be that extra pair. Maybe it's not your sandals, maybe it's not your high heels or that sort of thing. And you can get away with those. We could talk about, like, getting into investing in, like, Gore-Tex style jackets or boots, something that's both breathable and windproof and waterproof, right? But again, like, prices go up there, and I don't want to discourage anybody to think, like, what you have is a great way to start right now, because everyone has an old backpack, a kid's backpack from school that they aren't wearing anymore. Throw some stuff in there to make that your bug out bag in case you need to load it up and skedaddle, right? But again, like, let's go back to this scenario. You're in the winter months. It's winter right now, and during the winter, you want to keep warm. If you are out and your car is broken down, if you can't get somewhere, if you're far from home, if you for some reason, like, you got to run out the door because an emergency happens, you got to have a place to stay, and you got to be able to keep warm. And so, yeah, you got some layers, but any amount of insulation, any kind of insulation, will be really, really useful. So let's talk about sleeping bags, because sleep is going to make a huge difference as long as you can stay warm, right? You can always take off layers to get a little cooler, right? But you can't add too many, having too many layers is probably not a problem, because you could always shed some, right?
Right.
So, sleeping bag, in my experience, I've tried out the whole sleeping bag thing. I've tried out the whole, like, winter survival camp when I was a Boy Scout, and having a good sleeping bag probably makes a world of difference. Do you have one that you feel like you could highly recommend to people? Do you have a brand that you always go to? What? Tell me.
I'll be honest. So I've got a sleeping bag hack. So I found a way around it. So I bought a gently used military extreme cold weather sleeping bag system when my boys were in Boy Scouts. And really what it was is you had two sleeping bags that you could put one inside the other. And so you had a lighter sleeping bag for warmer months, a heavier sleeping bag for maybe your mid-season, and then you combine the two of them together for extremely cold weather. And I loved that thing. I wore it out. I ended up eventually breaking one of the zippers on it. And so, but what I figured, I thought, well, I wonder if I just went to I'll just say a big box store, something that rhymes with, like, a Small Mart,
Right.
And I bought a summer weight sleeping bag, and I put it into a winter weight sleeping bag that I can also buy at the same store. And I have used that for over a decade now, and it works beautifully. So now here's the seam's going to be the best. Are you going to have like an angel cut to it or a mummy cut to it or whatever you like? No. Um, I've got my larger one's kind of a mummy type bag, so it will cinch up around my head. My summer one is more just a rectangular one that I can even unzip into a blanket, which I like the option that way. So when I go camping, if it's in the fall or winter, I'll bring that combination. In my get home bag, I actually just have my summer weight bag because I can get it down to about that big. It's small, doesn't weigh anything. And then I've got an emergency blanket too. So again, I can do layers, wrap myself in the emergency blanket, climb into the sleeping bag,
Sweet.
and stay warm that way.
Yeah.
When I have to go to the office, which isn't that much anymore, I've got a good 30 miles to get home. So depending on when things went south and what time of day it was, I might get home in a single day, or I might have to find somewhere to crash under a tree for the night or around the corner from something and lay low and finish it in the morning the next day. So I just want to make sure I've got those options. It may be a little extra weight, but for me, it's worth it to have it and carry it in my pack than to just hope my layers are enough in the middle of the night on a cold night.
Yeah, totally. Yeah.
What about you?
I've used a couple of different things. There's like the thin bags, great for summer, just to cover you with something, right? So I do want to point out a couple of bags that I've gotten a hold of. Okay. So there's this one bag. This one is so crazy cool. It's a 2-person bag, right?
Yes.
And I'll tell you what, man, like when I'm in a sleeping bag, if I can't roll over, move around, because I guess I just toss and turn a lot, right? Having something where I can stretch out and still stay, like really, I could do my starfish, in there.
So this isn't for sharing body heat. This is just so Zach has enough room to be comfortable.
Just so that I can sleep the way I like to sleep.
I love it.
Like, so, yeah, sure, you could share some body heat. Take a pal with you, right? I'm sure.
Sorry, son, you're going to sleep after your daddy needs his room.
Yeah, few people get in there. I'm sure someone could get in there with me. I just don't know how they'd feel by the morning, right? But what's neat about this one is that it actually can be split into 2.
Nice.
And it can be folded onto itself to be like an ultra insulated one, which is really slick.
No, that's a cool option.
And one of my biggest pet peeves, I wonder if I can show you an example of this right here. Where is it at? No, okay, yeah, I'll show you some of these in a sec. But one of my biggest pet peeves is the fact that some of these just have that nylon interior, which feels so gross. It just like is really uncomfortable. And there are, liners for that purpose right here. And I did get a hold of a couple of these liners, which is super duper helpful.
Okay.
But this one actually just comes with this amazing cotton interior, super incredibly comfortable.
Is that almost kind of like flannel feeling or something like that?
Yes, and it's a giant bag though. We're talking like this is huge, right? Just imagine doubling your sleeping bag. I do have an emergency kit or a life bivvy inside every single bag that I have, right? So it's something it's gonna provide you a shelter, like so. And I also, of course, have the bags. They're basically those, space blankets that you just crawl into, and it just stores all the body heat in there. And so the thing that I have in my vehicle though is a fleece. Me talking about the synthetic fleece again. The fleece bag that you can put inside of your space blanket, and this way you're going to feel like real smooth, comfortable in there. It's going to be very warm. Anytime you move, it's just going to generate more heat and static, right? And then you're going to have your space blanket, which stores that in there, so it's not escaping. And so you have some breathability through the fleece, but it's going to reflect all that heat back on you. So that's my go-to. I haven't tested it in all kinds of weather, but I will say that this one time I was talking to this young guy, this homeless guy, 18 years old, out, and he's like, I have my goal to make it from Wilmington out on the East Coast all the way out to California and touch the ocean out on the West Coast and do it within a year, and he's
All
just
right.
like living it, like roughing it, like really crazy. He's pointed out some interesting lessons that I got to learn from him. One of them was just, he said the main thing he wishes he would have done is gotten a warmer sleeping bag. It's
Okay.
like that, like it couldn't be too warm, because you can always vent, right?
Right.
The other thing that he taught was about what other kind of gear he needed. It was the shoes, again, the boots. Someone had donated some boots to him. He said he had a really good knife that he was using that was stolen from him. And so I just think about like these scenarios where people are trying this out, living, roughing it, living it out in the wilderness, and they're still running into things in a civilized society that we're probably, and for the most case, like not prepared for, or
Right.
have to be more aware of. People stealing things, things getting left behind, like you mentioned, having the right footwear, having the right temperature for those winter nights.
Yep.
And so anyway, those are the general gist of sleeping bags that
I I like that your setup is lightweight. I mean, that's a real advantage in a case where if you were somewhere and needed to walk back to where, rally point home, wherever you were going. I think that works great. And honestly, in the Southeast, even if it were a rough night, that would probably still get you through it. And again, this isn't forever. This is just trying to get from starting point to wherever the destination is. So,
And I mean, you look at it, we're not talking about becoming refugees and traveling to another country,
right.
or giving up on living in society, right? Like, we're going to seek out a community. We're going to hopefully have a community that we rely on, and begin to rebuild if we need to,
Right.
But most of these are 72-hour kits that we're referring to, or get home kits, which mean like they don't have to have, we're not talking about travel
not
every
everything
3
kits.
days, right? Yeah,
Yeah.
they're just something that gets you from point A to point B kind of kits,
Right.
right? I do want to mention that there are a couple of these packs that are super, super tiny that I've gotten a hold of. This one was really nice. I get to sleep on it. It's got like a pump built in where you just press with
Okay.
your foot or your hand. That one's in my vehicle. I did have this one in my vehicle. This was such a nice one. This is like much closer to the really expensive ones, very, very thin, and gives you just a little bit of padding. And reason being is because everything I've learned about this is that if you're on the ground, then it'll suck away your heat.
Yeah.
And so even just having a little bit of elevation off the ground, a couple inches, would make a really big deal. Unfortunately, this one was one that got lost to the fate of my mother sending a package to the area, and it ends up somewhere at post office, put it on the street somewhere, and they
Oh,
can't tell me which
no.
house they drop it off at. All right,
Well,
so let's pop over to the next thing here.
Okay.
We do want to. We talked about the backpack.
Right.
There's a bunch of different versions out there that we could get. I will say before we completely leave the backpack topic, the cheapest bags are going to be the ones where you zip open the top and you have to dig down in to pull stuff out. The best kind of bags out there are the ones where they can open up long ways, kind of like a camera bag, which actually wouldn't be a bad option if you do find a cheap camera bag somewhere. You can find a lot of those at thrift stores and that sort of thing. I picked up one from there. Zipper doesn't work going in one direction, but it works great in the other direction. And you can just open it up. It's got padding on the sides, interior compartmentalization where you can keep things safe and stored that way. And again, doesn't look like a big military bag, so you don't, you're not like a target for like, oh, this guy's really prepared, has all the gear, right? So you got that operational security gray man sort of approach to it. But again, having a something that you can open up and not have to dig down and pull things out to get to things, that would make a huge difference for accessibility and just like dealing with the overall frustration or not losing things in the dark, that sort of thing. But anyway, I digress. Let's talk about what are we referring to when we say a stowing kit?
So I think on a broader scale, a stowing kit is how do you want to organize things in your pack? And so sometimes it's as simple as I'm going to put different things in Ziploc bags. So maybe, if you've got just different gear, like put your socks in a Ziploc bag to keep them waterproof. If you've got a walkie-talkie or a radio you're going to carry around. Maybe you want to make sure that's protected from your bag getting wet, or just things like that. More specifically, a lot of times people use this referring to an extra bag to put wet clothes in. And so you could take it and say, I'm going to grab a dry bag, and then I can just use it to put clothes in, because a dry bag will work both ways. It'll keep water on the inside or on the outside. I think of this more in a scenario like when I'm hiking, when I've done a couple of treks on the Appalachian Trail. If you get wet when it's raining, you might stop at a shelter or duck behind a few trees, and at least, change out of your wet clothes. You can't necessarily strap everything to your backpack. Socks usually work okay. You can air those out that way. But you need something to put them in until you get to wherever you're going to set up camp for the night, and then you can hang them up on a line and let them dry out some.
Yeah, I love that. One thing that I do want to point out that you emphasize is this great piece of advice that I also found in this list right here. This is really cool. This is on Scribed. I uploaded this. But check it out. It's 96-hour emergency kit after 30 years of trial and error. So there's a couple of guys that put this together. One of the things that they pointed to in here was first thing to share is that when building your kit, you want to put absolutely everything in Ziploc bags. You mentioned that, and apparently that's a really big deal, right? If stuff gets wet or stuff is disorganized, there it goes. If stuff gets wet, stuff is disorganized, then you're going to be losing stuff. You're going to start mixing stuff that shouldn't belong there. Another really good thing to do is this is what my mother-in-law, who's a big prepper, showed us in our first emergency kit, the 72-hour kit that she gave us one year. She put a list of everything that was in each of the pockets in the bag.
Nice.
And so this way, first thing you see is this list right here. It's everything that's on there, which is really, really neat. You could do the same thing with if you have both a permanent marker, a Sharpie, and a dry erase marker. What you can do is write on a laminated blank page or something like that, something slick like that. You could write. Actually, this is actually something you could do. You could take a card and wrap it in packing tape, and you can use a Sharpie on it to write down your list. Once something changes on that list, you can use the dry erase marker and write over it, which actually erases the Sharpie. And so this way, you can change your list as you go. That's all, and those sort of things. So I think that's a really powerful thing to make sure you're keeping track of what's in there. Someone mentioned to me one time, or heard somewhere, that there's these two philosophies of having a bag, kit. And one is that you never ever borrow from it, right? You can. So in this philosophy, it's you put stuff in there that you think you'll need, and you never ever touch it.
That's
so
where
that you're not missing stuff when it comes back around to it. But there's another philosophy which I'm becoming more of a fan of, which is to take a kit and actually use it. So this one, you might even call this your adventure kit. It's something that you've actually put into practice. This way, you know what you need. You go camping with it. And I've heard of people. I have a friend in our state that actually took his family with their bug out bags and just went for a weekend. And he was like, great, I've got all this stuff. I had the tourniquet, I have like all the medical emergency trauma, but I didn't have my boo-boo kit. And my little girl that was out there just needed a Band-Aid. So I had to makeshift one out of gauze and medical tape, And so you find out by using it exactly how much that you need out of it. And one of those things that you're going to need there is because, again, you're never, like people say, you're never really in danger. You're never really in trouble if you can communicate. And what's the best way to communicate? Definitely like your cell phone, right? Use your cell phone if it's available. Have a way to charge it. What I've started doing, I'm over talking here, but you weigh in after you hear this. What I have in my vehicle right now is a solar powered battery bank that I just leave in the center console, where you put your drink. So it's in one of the drink holders. and it's just receiving enough sunlight, not direct sunlight, that it's getting overcharged, getting like overheated and that sort of thing, but it's receiving some light, and it's just constantly available for me to charge my phone or whatever else that I need there. Same thing with right in the handle bar on the door, I have a solar powered flashlight with the solar panel facing upwards. So it's just getting enough light that it's going to keep a charge. So I'm completely covered with having some batteries on the go in that sense. And so otherwise, communication, any other thoughts on that?
I'm gonna put a little plug in for I bought some Baofeng radios. These aren't the ham radio, the handheld hams. They're kind of like that. These are more like the Home Depot employees got the radios where they can communicate with each other. It was a 5-pack for $100, and it was kind of my first time I realized, hey, comms might be important. I might want to be able to talk to neighbors or friends or people close by. And these were supposed to have up to a 3-mile range, which seemed pretty good, but you always get a little leery about that. Long story short, my boys were in Scouts, and we were doing a 50-miler on the Appalachian Trail in Virginia. And so I brought them along for the adult leaders to use. And I was impressed. Even in that train, we were regularly getting 1.5 miles on those, even out to 2 miles on some cases. So if you're looking for other alternatives, that might be one to look at. These are ones that you don't need a ham radio license for. They're just everyday use. They've got 16 channels that are dedicated to them on the bandwidth, and that's all they do. But they work.
Fantastic. That's really good. I'll tell you what, when it comes to navigation, having maps, getting them laminated, something you could order for free from your local tourism, like state tourism website, and you can drop into, like I had said before, you can drop into your tourist stop when you're passing the state lines, that sort of thing. I picked up multiple maps that way. Like I also said before, you could have your maps downloaded for the state area that you're in on your phone. Yeah, there's a bunch of other gadgets you could use as well for that. But give me your thoughts on GPS.
GPS is great. It's such a wonderful tool. I've had so much fun playing with it. But first and foremost, I would encourage everybody to learn to read a map and use a compass. Honestly, that would put you so far ahead of so many people nowadays. But I think as long as if GPS is working, if we're not in a grid down scenario, or even if we are in a grid down scenario and it's still working, yeah, use it while you have it. But another thing too is just explore your community. If you've got one route you take to work all the time, that's great, but maybe spend a little extra time and find a couple alternate routes that you can try driving home one day that you don't have appointments you need to hurry to. So you've got a few backup plans that aren't maybe the major roads. I've talked to police officers in the area here that said they were doing road work, or there was an accident and they had to detour people, and people would stop saying, I don't know how, this is the only way I know how to get home. And he even asked one, he said, are you new here? And the guy said, no, I've lived here 8 years now. So there's some things like that.
To like keep track of like how long it's going to take to get to a destination, to just turn on your GPS for anything in town. And suddenly you realize, I don't know the name of streets. I don't know the name of I don't know any other alternate routes and that sort of thing.
Right.
It's something. It's interesting how much we get dependent on certain things, for sure.
Thanks for joining us today. We hope this has been some useful information. Would encourage you that if this has been beneficial, you've had a good time and maybe you laughed with us or at us, please like, subscribe, share it with friends. Next week, we're going to talk about, or next time, we're going to talk about survival kits. We're going to talk about maybe just like a little everyday carry tin that you can put together. You can keep it in your car, have it on your person, in your work bag, whatever works, but just to give you some options.
Absolutely. Thank you, guys. Thanks for watching. Thanks,
right.
Will.
Thanks. Bye.
See you.